Hello, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White and the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and I'm here again with my co-host.
Good morning, everyone. This is Bonnie Snyder.
Uh, we want to welcome everyone today. You know, this is the last show I think that we're going to be taping in this studio.
In this studio.
In this studio.
We're not going away, folks.
No.
We're just we're just excited that we're moving to a new studio. So yeah, this is our last show in this
it's going
studio.
to be. I'm excited about it. I think everybody here at WeBeam TV is excited about it. We have some really cool things that are going to be happening. I think kind of during and immediately after our move. And, you know, again, we want to thank John and Rob from WeBeam TV. I'm excited. You know, we're going to have a new set. And the timing is going to fall like really kind of cool because it'll be just before we get ready to start Art for Hope in September. And we're going to start bringing art on the set.
Nice.
And probably be doing that start early, like throughout December, even before the fundraiser starts. Because, too, we're going to have, and it might even, I don't know when it's going to happen yet. It might happen before the show airs. It might not. We have a fundraiser coming up that all WeBeam TV is going to be a part of, a rockathon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be teams from our different shows. And I don't know if we'll have teams from other people or not. I talked to John about that. But and it's going to be, the whole rockathon is going to be live on WeBeam TV.
Nice.
We don't have the dates yet, but it's like a Friday night at 7 o'clock to Sunday night at 7 o'clock. Don't know how long we'll last, but we're raising funds for different charities and for the station, and I don't know if I was talking to somebody yesterday. I'm like, I don't know if Bonnie and I should recruit somebody younger than us to do our rocking, or.
You know, here's my take on this whole rockathon. Is, you know, sometimes those young whippersnappers think they have something on us, our seasoned folks. And, you know, I'm kind of hoping, you know, knocking on wood, I usually only sleep 4 hours a night.
We may have an advantage. That's where your short sleep cycles will come into.
What I'm thinking is, hope this rocking chair doesn't okay, at about these 4 hours that you think you get. It's gonna be, you know, if you don't know what a rockathon is, you know, pretty much it's like a little marathon. I shouldn't say a little. It's think of it as a marathon where individuals are instead of running around a track where, I might get somebody with better knees than mine to run around a track. But we'll be in rocking chairs. And the idea is you have to rock for the whole entire 24 hours.
This is going to be 48 hours.
Or 48 hours, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You did say Friday to Sunday.
Yeah. And it's only teams of 2.
And so, you know, I'm looking for.
I think it's going to be fun.
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
so I started announcing it yesterday at one of my groups that I meet with on Wednesdays, and it's like, okay, we don't have all the details, but get ready for it because it's going to be here, and like I said, it's going to be streamed live, the whole thing, and. It's going to be interesting because we have some characters here in our group, our little family here. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited about that. So that's like kind of the first big thing that we're going to have. We thought about doing it here in the studio as we were moving, but I think John's decided that because we're going to have such a bigger studio. In our move, so it'll probably be one of the first things that takes place.
Another thing too, doing it here in this studio while we're moving.
Yeah.
Is that logistically possible? I mean, we know how to make things work, or how to make things happen. At the same time, like I said, it's an event. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be good. So even though Art for Hope isn't until September, and we're going to run it from September 1st again to, I don't have the date. It's the Saturday before Thanksgiving, which is Suicide Loss Survivors Day. I, as the founder of the foundation and kind of in charge of all this, have decided again this year just to have it virtual. We do have a lot of other organizations that are going live this year, and a couple of their fundraisers I'm a part of also, and I just didn't feel that comfortable because it's like going to all happen at once. And with the show and our new move, I felt that it just adds another platform for our virtual event. And like I said, every week we'll have artwork will adorn our set, and we'll have introduced ways that you can either bid or purchase on the items available. And there's other platforms because too, and I don't think I know I don't mention it enough, but this time of year is a good time really to do it. Is the Hilton Garden Inn out on the Suncoast and 54, the main floor of that hotel, all that artwork that decorates that hotel is artists that my gallery represents. And for Art for Hope, all that artwork that is available there is for Art for Hope. So if you're ever out there at an event, or you live in this area and you want to go take a look at some of the artwork, it's all out there. There's there's little plates on beside every piece of artwork that gives the contact information for the gallery, and so that's part of it too. So that's I'm kind of getting excited about that, especially being able to incorporate that into our show at the end of summer. So, and then again, we have our T-shirts. You can support us that way at any time, and if you want to support the show, with the T-shirts prior to our big fundraiser, or Kindness, you can go to the landing page there, and there's a multitude of choices, and you can donate your own choice. You can get there by clicking on that QR code there in the lower corner there, and that's a way to help support us too, and support our studio and Weaving TV and the foundation. And
there's also Amazon Smile.
Yeah, smile.amazon.com. On your regular Amazon account, if you don't have that, if you go to smile.amazon.com, and I don't know exactly how it works, but it's really easy. It converts your regular page to smile.amazon, and up at the bar up at the top of your Amazon page, it'll show the charity of choice that you have chosen. And you don't have to choose ours. We would appreciate it if you did, but there's a ton of worthy charities out there, and we have a lot of great local ones that are on there also.
How I found the Smile Amazon, I was actually on my particular Amazon page, and in the search bar where you search for whatever it is you're trying to purchase, if you type in Amazon Smile, it'll take you, it'll give you a prompt for the Smile sign in.
Oh, okay.
And just hit it. That's the it's the easiest way, to find it. What I found, when I'm, we've said this over and over again multiple times. We're Amazon junkies. Addicted to Amazon. But yeah, I am, made it a point. I have to be conscious to look. Does it say the Amazon little smile thing and then Prime, or does it say Smile? Because yeah, I've had several times where I will hit place the order, and then I look, oh shucks, I'm in my Prime account. I really wanted that to be in my Smile account, especially when it's a larger order.
Sometimes it automatically populates that, because when I go into mine, and I know I always look, to make sure, but I always go to my account, smile.amazon, and it just, that's the page.
I don't know. I wonder if mine just defaults to Amazon Prime because I watch a lot of Prime Video.
Oh, that could be because mine is actually my business account.
Gotcha.
And which we have too. We do have an account. I have my business account, and the foundation actually, and I never thought about this. The foundation has an Amazon account, and within our foundation account, we have a wish list. And I'll have to research because I don't really know how you do that. But you could go, I think somehow you go into Amazon, find the Bobby White Foundation, and see what our wish list is. And that's another way that you could help out the foundation. It's just, items we need for the office, our purple folders. You could help contribute to that program by purchasing the purple folders that we put all our information in. I'll have to get the details on that because it just now popped into my head. And we're also going to be having coming up here, and we may start it in August or just start previewing it in August, because I think we'll have a second door available. I need to talk to my great nieces about that. But we have this door that our great nieces are so talented, and this is the third door that they've done for the foundation that is going to be up for auction. The starting bid is $1,000. The girls designed this. My husband was a huge Beatles fan, and the first 2 years, the older niece Haley, she is the one who came up. Participated in this, and now my younger niece Josie, she's such a little spitfire, and she wanted to be a part of it this year. She was older and had more understanding now than when all this first started, but it's really cool. That's their contribution and their way to honor their uncle, who they love dearly. Nice. So that's gonna be really cool. And like I said, I'm gonna see. We may end up having 2 doors up for auction this year. We'll see what they can come up with. And that is, I believe, it's a Chevy door, and that the window actually does still roll up and down.
Nice.
So it's a really great conversation piece. Something that could be a feature item in your home or office. So, and help out a great cause.
When I think of the door, it makes me think of Kira's husband, who's a mechanic. I don't like, so that, those who are, mechanics or, car enthusiasts, again, what a wonderful showpiece to have, somewhere, in your, home or, at your business.
And there's a great story behind it,
There is. Yeah.
So we, there's a lot that's going to be happening. And we're excited as everybody else. And so I think what we're going to try and do, because actually we're taping this ahead of time, and so we'll be off so we can help with the move. And so I think we're going to finish up this book that we've been going through, and so we'll have a fresh start in our new studio and bunch of new ideas, a bunch of new resources. you're going to see our shows every week. You're not, and we appreciate every time that you tune in. But we're still going to be working on bringing you new information and resources that we'll start out at our new studio. And
Yeah, I love this book.
this is a really great book, and we're getting really towards the end of it, but it still has, actually, as we go through this during this program, yeah, it's really good. I like the work areas that she has in each chapter is really helpful, because like we said before, sometimes you can read something and then it's like, what am I going to do with this? And Stephanie Jose, she gives you ways to, this is what you can do with it, and help you along. And I really like books like this, that I've got my writing. I mean, I make notes for the show, but I have all my little notes for me in here. I write all over my books.
Yeah, just a reminder, to everyone, the book is Processing Through Grief, guiding exercises to understanding your emotions and recover from loss. As Tammy said, it's written by Stephanie Jose, who's a licensed mental health counselor.
And you can get this on Amazon.
Get this on. You can.
And choose the Bobby White Foundation as your charity of choice.
I got it.
That's how I got mine too. So,
and you're right. I do like the fact that this book is very, when a lot of times when we get a book, that talks about processing and emotions and dealing with things, oftentimes it is just, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read this book and,
then
what do I get out of it? And then it's like, okay, I've read the book. What I like about a lot of the books, this one, is one of the ones in particular, that it is an interactive book, because it, what I do in my work is, just kind of like the misstep last week. And I was like, and where are we at? Oh, we're right here.
I know. I was like,
no.
40 to we're way ahead of that.
So let me explain myself a little bit, guys, because I was like, does she really know what's going on here? It's a testament to the book, because I use this book in my work off the studio, out of the studio. And what I had marked was, oh, here's where we are. For my group, but not for the show. So you guys, I'm not, anyway, that explains it. I do this. And again, but it is again a testament to the book, because it allows for either, the reader themselves on their own to read, the topic at hand. And then it goes on to provide an area to where, okay, so now that you've read that, now that you have, hopefully a better understanding over what you just read, now apply it to yourself. Mm-hmm. How does this, do for you? And I find, again, not only for myself, but oftentimes the people that I work with, is when you're able to personalize something, it has the better meaning.
Right.
Had this platform, being able to, sit down and talk about, grief and loss and processing, but also, put a personal spin on it. Well, this was my experience. This is, let me give you some real perspective. Because I don't want to say anybody can write a book. Anybody can't write a book.
Otherwise, everybody would be doing
writing a book, right? But like I said, there are books and there are good books, and this is definitely
definitely one of the good ones. That's for sure. Yeah.
So with that,
so we were getting towards the end of chapter 7, anxiety, and we had gone over, different ways that anxiety kind of shows itself. And towards the end of this, and I heard this actually many, many years ago when I lost my first husband, that don't make any major changes during your first year. And that can cause, the two highest stressors in our lives are a death and moving.
Mm-hmm.
And they're almost even. Not quite, but so you really and just imagine. I mean, you're going through so much, and you decide to make a change,
Mm-hmm.
second guessing, whatever. The stress and the anxiety that you're going to put on yourself, you're going to barely make it through the day. And a lot of things that I read, they say the first year is your worst year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that. The first year, you're kind of on automatic pilot.
Mm-hmm.
My experience, and it with both of my husbands, I don't remember the first year.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things that I do not remember the first year. The second and the third year were the worst for me, in both cases. Because to me and with my experience is that, okay, you're coming out of that fog, you're coming out of the initial shock, trying to get your new life together. Friends and family have gone on to continue their lives, and your life isn't the same. So, and you're more aware the second and third year.
I can see how for some people, that first year is you're still in that shock and disbelief. And then year two, the reality like smacks you dead in the face. And what I find is the point of, tapping the brakes a little or a lot, depending upon where you are, in that first year has everything to do with the fact that when something happens and we're in that heightened emotional state, we tend to be impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
I recall, many people, I shouldn't say many, let me back that off a little bit. Several people, donate Patrick's clothes. Do this, do that. And I'm, like, no, I can't do this. I'm giving my son away. I would walk by his room and, it took me a while before I could even, like if I made the motion to go into his room, I would get, as we talked a lot, last week about, anxiety, but I would get that, like he's not in here. Or then I would, it took me a year to be able to go into his room. And as I said, on my interview, I'd made a vow that, I was going to, remodel his room, do his room. And, as I said to Evan, during our interview, I said, little by little, I'm able to come into this room. And, little by little, I would, pack, box things up and, put things in tote. I refused to get rid of anything that belonged to him. Now, his bedroom set, this one dresser, beautiful piece of furniture. My daughter has it. His clothing, Devin saved those for me. But again, it was like, I don't want to do anything. And like I said, it was a year. I think it was the year after, at least, that I actually was able to go in his room and take down everything off the walls. And as I was taking things down off the walls, I could feel that, because this is really changing. And then putting everything back up. And, some things I put, back on the walls where we had it, or where he had it. You know, and I know people are like, what? What did she just, wait a minute, he's not coming back. And I was like, I don't understand. His picture of a Joker, you know, the Joker. You know, I have that back on the corner wall where he had it. You know, his Bruce Lee picture, you know, for instance, or, you know, his portrait of Bruce Lee. Well, I took that out because I love the saying on it. That's in my living room. You know, his, you know, the pictures he had of, you know, he and his children, you know, those are back up in his room. And, you know, it's not, you know, mind you, it's not a shrine, or anything, you know, like that. But it is, okay, we made a promise we were going to redo this room. And by golly, I'm going to do this room. But anything else in terms of, you know, getting rid of stuff, some people suggested you should move. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you know,
I had that one.
no. And I was like, you know, and I was like, no, you know, because I thought, you know, just being in the house, knowing that, you know, his room is around the corner. And I'm like, no. Was, you know, being in the house I still feel connected to him. Because this is the last place he lived, you know.
That's the way I am with my place. You know, I had the same thing, you know. Oh, you know, are you going to move? My mom wanted me to move back to Washington. And I'm like, I actually have lived here most of my life,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And granted, that's where my husband died,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where I feel connected to him too. You know, I can't let one bad day that really made a major shift in
Mm-hmm.
our lives ruin, you know, the 25 years that we spent there. You know, we got married in our backyard, and even though it falls on my birthday, it's a time that I cherish. And my family was down here from out west, and it's, you know, like I said, it's actually the only place that either one of us lived the longest.
And, you know, the thing about, you know, making these decisions, because if you think back to one of the suggestions, you know, that she has here in the book is make a list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what, you know, one thing that I would, you know, say I find helpful is making that list of things you want to do. Like, you know, for instance, you know, again, if I were to use, you know, losing Patrick as an example, redo his room, you know, remodel his room. You know, do I, you know, donate or not to donate his clothes? What to do with his clothing? What to do with his shoe? You know, his shoes. You know, what to do with, you know, the 1,000 decks of cards that he has, or the, you know, multiple puzzles, and, you know, or the, you know, the, you know, 500 pair of socks that he has. You know, they're all novelty socks. And, you know, as I'm going through, it's like, well, I'm keeping the puzzles, you know, because I like, you know, the mind, you know, the manipulation puzzles. Mm-hmm. You know, I love those. Well, you know, the decks of cards are, you know, in a box, you know, in his closet. Why do I need to get rid of these cards? Not his. You know, sometimes, you know, we'll have friends, you know, hey, you know, can I have something of Patrick's? And, you know, there's a couple of friends of his, you know, they can think of in particular, that it's like, absolutely, you know, absolutely. Like, you know, this one girl, you know, that I love her dearly, Jessica. You know, when she came, she was reluctant to ask me. And I'm thinking, no, you show me what you want. And I said, like what? You know, so she got one of Patrick's, you know, light sticks and a pair of his novelty socks and a deck of cards. And, you know, for me, it's like, oh, I was okay doing that. But the other stuff, no, it's not going anywhere.
Well, and Stephanie, she writes in here with coping with anxiety, you know, kind of expanding on your list thing. Make a list of changes you want, then revisit them in a week and see if you still want to make those changes.
You know, and here, you know, the other, you know, to that point, you know, the add-on to that is where she says, smocus. What is wrong with my voice? What is wrong with my vocabulary today? Focus on the small details instead of the bigger picture. Find detail-oriented activities to focus your attention. Try building dollhouse furniture. putting together a model airplane, doing puzzles, or even building with Legos. And, for me, she hit the nail on the head with us doing puzzles. Because one of the things that Patrick had was their egg puzzles. It's like, I would leave the house sometimes. He goes, "Mom, where are you headed?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to whatever place I was going to." If you're out and you see, if you see one of these eggs, bring them back. And what it is, it's in the egg has a little rod to it, and the rod has two little balls on it. Maybe I'll bring one, to bring one to set when when we're filming again. But you start this rod at the top of the egg, and you have to manipulate it through this maze, through this egg, and pull the rod out the bottom. And the little balls, get hooked into where, like, again, you manipulate this rod through this maze into this egg, and it comes out. And I have one on my desk that he gave me that was considered one of the more difficult ones. And I find doing these little egg puzzles to be so relaxing. So when I read that, when she says do puzzles, I'm like, got one on the desk. Got one on the desk.
Yeah, doing little things like that is really helpful.
What did you think about where she put make a crisis plan so you feel more prepared for a crisis?
For me, no. I don't think that you can really plan for a crisis. I've been through two major ones in my life. One when I was, in my 20s, and this one, I just don't think that it kind of, and I don't even know why the analogy is, but I remember back, it's probably been, I don't know, at least 12 years ago, my aunt, my mom's sister, my mom's the oldest, and Aunt Bert was the next one, and she was killed in a horrific car accident, suddenly, and out in Seattle, and it was on the news, and one of my other cousins actually was watching that, not knowing it was our aunt. And I get a phone call from my cousin, her daughter, and her and I, my cousin and I, Karina, are really close. We were born 8 months apart. So right now, we're the same age. We do this every year. Her birthday's in May and mine's in August, so for 3 months, we're the same age. But Bobby had gone to visit his mom, and my cousin called me that her mom was killed in this accident. And if I could call my mom to let her know. And my mom was still working up until a year and a half ago, I think. And so I had to make that phone call to my mom to tell her that her sister had been killed. And then when Bobby died, I was the only one that I was the one that had to make the phone calls. And so I called my cousin and told her what happened. And I said, "Can you call my mom?" Because I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of roles were reversed. I had to call my mom to let her know her sister had died for my cousin, and my cousin had to call my mom to tell her son-in-law had died for me. And you can't make a plan for a crisis. I know you're gonna I beg to differ, but I don't, to me, I don't want to have, I mean, the only thing that per se that I have done since Bobby had died, and we didn't do it after Michael was killed. because we didn't have a will, you know, when Michael died. And even when Bobby and I got together and, you know, and several years later got married, even knowing, you know, going through that experience, and he went through that experience with me, we never had a will either. And I kind of should have known better because, you know, my first husband was killed surveying. He was a land surveyor, as was Bobby. Actually, Bobby was with him and saw him get killed. And Bobby was a land surveyor that whole entire time. And I lived with every single day him walking out that door wondering if he was going to come home again. Because I already went through that. But I never had a crisis plan for any of that, even knowing that I've been through that situation before. I now have a will because now it's just me. There's nobody else but me to make sure that there's somebody else to take care of things.
And I think what I find, and yes, you know me all too well.
I can tell from the look on your face. I'm just like, oh, here it comes.
You guys can't see. Yeah, it's funny when we do the tight end screens. You can't see. You know, you don't see our expressions that we're giving each other. You know, as we're talking. You know, here's my take on having crisis plans, because I think they are doable and they have a lot of utility to them, and it helps reduce some anxiety. Now, mind you, we come from different schools of thought. Being military, for example, it was
your plan. You
right.
you got things.
Yeah, it is. But like I remember, during my military days, it was mandatory for us, especially those of us who were either married to another service member, and period of my life, my children's dad was military as well, and then later on in my career when I became a single parent. But we had to have, a plan in case we got deployed. So in my case, it was, whether deployed or not, who was going to babysit my children? Where were my children going to go if we got deployed? And all of that had to be spelled out. And like if I said, for instance, my children were going to go to a family member, that family member had to, like almost notarize, or acknowledge, yes, if she is deployed, this is where they're going to, or they're coming to me. Fast forward to, the crisis plan as it relates to a loss. If I rewind tape a little bit and go back to when I lost my nephew to Katrina, and I say, in all actuality, he was my nephew. At the same time, that was my first child that I ever lost because I had custody of him for a while. Or custody of him since he was like 6 or 8. And, my children regarded him, and he was indeed the older brother.
Right.
He was older than Carl, mind you. But anyway, after he, died, there was a little bit of controversy as we were doing his funeral. And I felt myself in this place in terms of what do I do? Because I did not know. Now, he was, almost, he was 28, when he passed away. And I felt myself like grappling with what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So as I'm, processing with the funeral director, the service and how we wanted to go. I remember calling, his brother, my nephew who's older, his older brother. Rich, help me. I don't know what he wanted. What, I will defer to. Now, I could have called, my sister, but another story. But, tell me what he would have wanted, because I don't know. And, so we talked through, okay, this, the decision, ended up, that he was cremated. And I'm like, okay. And then I was reluctant to, admit last week that, we were in the studio. It was July the 1st. It was my other nephew, the one that was on the cancer journey with me, was his birthday. And, I think of, when he passed away, my sister, did all of the planning, obviously, for his service. When I think of crisis planning as it relates to grief and loss, it kind of forced, because I had a little bit of the same thing, with Patrick. What would he want? What would he want? What would he want? Because I never wrote down, like I'm sure we've had these conversations based on, what we went through with Antoine. What do we do here? Do you want to get buried? Do you want to get cremated? And I remember distinctively telling, my family, this is what I want. So everybody hears me. If someone says that you want to be buried or cremated, y'all know what I want. And back then, I think my viewpoint has changed a little bit in light of you losing Patrick, mind you. But the crisis planning becomes, if something happens to me, so like, my two surviving children, Carl and Jean, they know. My will is here. My daughter, she was like, I don't want to talk about this. However, I don't want to go through what we went through over here and here. So they know if something happens to me, your first call is to a military base and let them know that I have passed. They will know what to do because the military will take over. My will is here. I looked at certain family members, and said, okay, if something happens to me, this is what to do. So in this kind of crisis planning, what I feel is it takes some of the anxiety, it takes some of the pressure off of those who are left behind, because I'm almost certain, I think I can safely, presume anybody that's had to plan a service, has been like, oh my gosh, what is the best way that I want to do this to honor the person that has passed on? To me, it's no different than, we live here in Florida. We're coming up on hurricane season.
Actually, we have one maybe heading our way.
Right. So, when you think of, here's hurricane season, what do we do to prep for hurricane season?
Right.
A lot of us have that little, that tote or two in the garage that has the flashlights and the battery and the, the canned goods and the whatnot, just in case. Mm-hmm. Or I think, when I lived in Kansas when we were, tornado season, where's your plan in case a tornado hits? So for me, that's where my brain processes in terms of, crisis planning. If this happens, I want to make sure that all my ducks are in a row, so that if it's me, I do not have to experience more pressure than what is needed, or I don't want to add emotion on top of the emotion that's already going on.
Right.
I know what to do. So again, when I think of Jean and Pat, I love you, son. Jean and Carl, I love you too, son. Just make sure I love them both. When I think of the two of them, they're like, this is not a discussion I want to have. However.
Well, yeah, it's a discussion. Well, and I think that's why Bobby and I never, really did that, even though we went through that, with Michael. We did have the discussion, actually, both of my husbands, we all, each time agreed that we just went as far as, if anything happened to me, I want to be cremated. I don't want a funeral. Okay, so we did go that far. We were a little bit more free spirit about it in both cases. Mm-hmm. And, even though, Michael or Bobby and I, we knew better because of what happened with Michael. But, and then, like I said now, it's not as much of a plan, but it's way more of a plan than what I had before. My nephew knows that, something happens to me, you're in charge. Mm-hmm. And I'll be cremated too. And so I guess it's, a little bit of a plan, but I'm just a little bit more free-spirited with my plans.
Yeah, and what I would say, Tammy, is there's nothing wrong with being, free-spirited or having some flexibility on, different, sides of a plan. So again, if I look at, thinking we're in hurricane season, if, all of a sudden, let's just say, I live in, it's a joke amongst, friends and family. I live in the white zone of, our county. And they were like, when I say that, I live in the white zone, they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you got to understand, the white zone as far as evacuation, red zone, mandatory evacuation. Right. Red and white zone, 50-50, it kind of depends on how bad it is. White zone, this is where everybody evacuates to.
Right.
So I'm, safely in the white zone. Now, that's not to say, and I think when Irma came through, and, I lost, a panel off of one of my, I have a little plastic storage unit back, ripped one of those panels off, a couple trees fell down, took out, neighbors' fences and whatnot. So it's not like just because I live in this evacuation zone that I can't sustain damage to my house or
Right.
property.
Well, in Irma, we didn't think it was going to be what it was. That happened. I think Irma was Labor Day weekend, the year that Bobby died, and that's when I still had a broken leg, and my bathroom ceiling fell in the shower.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go on a cruise, and my whole cruise got canceled. But again, when I'm thinking about, again, having, a fluid, crisis plan.
I guess I'm maybe a little bit more for it than I thought.
Yeah, like I said, you had turkey in too. But yeah, it's a good thing to say. Well, I look at it as having a backup plan. So again, if I go back to being in the military, who's going to keep my children? So if I said, if I have to deploy, my children will go to my mom. If my mom is not available, then they will go to my sister. Now, knowing they went home to mom, my sister was going to have them, or vice versa.
Right.
So, having that.
Well, and having kids, you have to have more of that, I think, because Michael and I never had children. It was just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
Our plan could be very simple and
exactly.
And the same thing. And the same thing with Bobby. Bobby and I never had children. So I mean, we just had to worry about each other.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with me.
Yeah.
Being I'm single.
Yeah, but you still have your children and your grandchildren.
I do. However.
Well, it's different now being older, but.
Well, when you think of again emergency plans as it relates to, I mean, I have one plan in place that includes my children. If I think of, again, going back to the hurricane, if a hurricane hits, before my daughter moved to where she is now, she was in one of those mandatory evacuation zones. So we knew if a storm was coming and there was a potential to flood, she comes to my home. I had to have a plan. Well, what happens? My sister was here at the time because she actually flew in for the cruise. And she's looking at me, and I'm trying to convince her. I live in the white zone. We're fine. Of course, the anxiety was, Katrina and losing our nephew.
Oh, yeah.
You understand? I would not put us in harm's way. However, I do have a contingency plan if this plan needs to be modified. You know what I mean? And so I think with any plan, any crisis plan, having a built-in, just in case I have to modify, if plan A, if there's a glitch in plan A, it's always good to have a plan B.
Talking about the hurricanes, when Bobby and I got married, it was when Hurricane David was coming through. And I was getting dressed for my wedding watching the hurricane reports. And I think the next day after we got married, and I had a lot of family from Washington State down here for the wedding. And they've never lived through hurricane season. I had been here for years, so it was, not that big of a deal per se. All our family out west was kind of freaking out because there was so much family down here and there's a hurricane coming. And anyway, the day after our wedding, we were supposed to leave to go to Orlando to go to Disney World. My family was going on our honeymoon with us to Disney World. And here's Hurricane David. And after it hit South Florida that day, we had no idea where it was going to go. And so all my family, I was like, okay, we're not going to Disney World yet. We've got to wait here a day or two. We've got to find out where this storm is going. And we did, and one person in particular was like, well, there's no reason why we can't go over there. And I'm like, you could take my advice or you don't. But I've lived here long enough. Let's just, it's not going to hurt for us to stay put for a day or two, just to make sure that we're all safe. And yeah, that was just so crazy. And we waited a day or two. It went off in another direction, and we went to Disney World and had a great time.
That's nice.
But yeah, you never know. You never know.
You never know, but again, it's always,
I guess, maybe a little bit different. A little bit of a plan is not bad.
I think what it is when we think about having crisis plans or whatnot, some of the pushback comes with, how do I plan for the unexpected?
Well, that, and who wants to talk about, like your daughter, who wants to talk about, oh, okay, we got to make arrangements, for when I die. Nobody wants to have that conversation.
No, they don't. I find every time I go to, my doctor for, an appointment, or every time I go into the hospital for a procedure, one of the first questions that I'm always asked, do you have a living will? And I look at him, no. Do you want one? And in my head, as I said, that intelligent side of me is saying, you really should have one, And I'm like, no. Or they'll give me the paper. Well, here's the paper in case you change your mind. And I sit back and I think about this. Well, wait a minute. What happens if, something happens? There's going to come a time, I think, that I'm not going to be able to express. I can remember when I went in for, when I had the partial nephrectomy, for the renal cancer. My mom was here and my ex-husband were there, and I remember looking at the nurse, who was in charge of my case. I was getting ready to go into surgery, and I was like, I want to make sure, that you understand that if there is a medical emergency, I understand that that's my husband, and by law, he has to say so. That woman gave birth to me, so there will be no decisions made without her input. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I know I said my ex-husband, but anyway, what I'm saying to that is, if I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should have something in writing that says who has say so, because I think right now everybody understands, if something were to happen to me, the medical decisions, I think for the most part people default. It's probably going to be my daughter.
But how does the HIPAA law now that we have fall into place with that if you don't have a living will?
Well, and I think there is a misunderstanding. People do not understand what HIPAA is, and a lot of people will defer to, but you're violating HIPAA. HIPAA just basically, and if I use myself, let's just say if you were in therapy with me and someone called me and said, hey, do you have a patient, or a client, Tammy White, I cannot, let's just say it was your mom, okay? I mean, personally, your mom calls me, are you doing therapy with my daughter? I cannot confirm or deny that you are a client of mine, because that would be a violation. I can't give out your, medical information without your permission. And so it's not so much a HIPAA issue. If something happens, it defaults to who does the law say has the authority to make these decisions in the case that I can't. So with me, for instance, something that happened to me, it immediately defaults to my children, and Carl as the oldest, he may, I don't see him and Jean battling, but as the oldest, he would say, I'm the eldest child, therefore he has the immediate legal say so. Now he and Jean would work together. Excuse me, if I were to say write a living will or these are my wishes and say, well, I want them to have joint decision, but Jean has the final say so in terms of the medical aspects of it because she's a CNA. Would I do that? I know. I mean, I joke with my kid,
Yeah.
Gene, I'm like, Gene, I got to be nice to you because you're the child that wouldn't put me in a nursing home. Yeah. Not that Pat, Carl or Pat would, but anyway, that's where that piece comes in, where, again, it is good to have a plan.
We came, actually, and, I don't ever remember these things until discussions. Back in 2007, Bobby had colon cancer. And at the same time, our brother-in-law, his sister's husband, had colon cancer, and he was actually dying. He actually passed away 2 days before Bobby's surgery.
Mm.
And I had been in meetings and situations where I have lawyer friends, and we did go down before his surgery, and we both had living wills done up.
We're just looking at the time. Just
Oh,
like
no, what
God,
happened?
It happens. So we're going on a little hiatus, not from the show per se, but from taping because we are moving. We're moving the studio. So when we get back into taping, we will pick up the last
Yeah,
couple of
because I thought we
chapters
were
of
going to
this book.
finish this.
No, it always happens.
It always happens. So, yeah, you get into deep discussion. And
Yes, we did.
I didn't even see that. So, so please put the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline in your phones. Have, all of these numbers available for anybody who may need them. And remember, you're not alone, and
Amen.
there's always hope, right?
Right.